Following the launch of the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5, the use of ray tracing in video games has been steadily going up. Several excellent titles have utilized the technology and produced fantastic results, but there are also some upcoming games that are worth pointing out. So let's take a look at all of them here. Before we go ahead, please consider subscribing to our channel. We upload new videos every single day, and your support really helps us out. With that out of the way, let's start. Resident Evil Village. Only 6 months ago, it seemed somewhat unreasonable that a game could push for 4K visuals with ray tracing at anything higher than 30 FPS on the Xbox Series X and PlayStation 5. Not only does Capcom's Resident Evil Village achieve this, but it looks mighty good as well. A quick stroll through Castle Dimitrescu's main hall showcases the splendor of its shiny floors and various reflections they create. But even when navigating through the titular village, puddles create realistic reflections. Ray tracing also produces softer shadows and more realistic ambient lighting from sources like fire. And it does all of this while maintaining a consistent frame rate and resolution, both on consoles and the recommended PC hardware.
Wait long.
The Medium. Right from its reveal of its dual reality gameplay, Bloober Team's The Medium looked special. It was discovered later that it supported ray tracing in some very interesting ways. Not only could it handle ray-traced reflections and ambient occlusion, but also transparent reflections. This means that objects like glass display cases and windows will reflect objects and individuals in the environment while also maintaining their transparency. The effect is especially brilliant when looking at a clock with a glass cabinet or a picture frame. Ambient occlusion is similarly incredible, with light sources lending a warmth to their surroundings, while barely illuminated sections look that much more harrowing. Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. Sony couldn't have asked for a better showpiece for the PS5's power or ray tracing capabilities than Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. The city offers all kinds of reflective surfaces with a variety of materials. Parallax helps maintain the illusion of Spider-Man scaling across walls and seeing the world reflected in all of its detail through them. And yes, ray tracing realistically showcased reflections and puddles as well, putting one of the weirder controversies dogging the first game to rest. While one could criticize the quality of ray-traced reflections or the mixing of screen space reflections for some objects, the overall result was simply gorgeous. Being able to experience the feature at either a higher resolution or at 60 FPS did not hurt either. Marvel's Spider-Man Remastered. Of course, Insomniac Games wasn't done there. It updated the original Spider-Man to support ray tracing as well. The implementation is very similar to Miles Morales, with parallaxing and sublime depth to the ray-traced reflections, even if it features similar drawbacks, particularly in the quality of the reflections. The remaster's other enhancements, like improved textures and assets, help to highlight the ray tracing all the more, blending seamlessly into one compelling package. Gears 5. When Gears 5 launched for the Xbox Series X, it featured a number of visual improvements like better volumetric lighting and shadows, along with features like variable rate shading and dynamic latency input. Screen space global illumination is also included, but in a unique way, utilizing a software-based ray tracer as per Digital Foundry. The result is more realistic lighting and shadows, along with elements like muzzle flashes playing a role in the overall illumination. While it doesn't utilize ray-traced reflections, it still showcases how ray tracing can be utilized in subtle ways to bolster a game's presentation. Gran Turismo 7. Polyphony Digital hasn't showcased too much of Gran Turismo 7 after its reveal in June of last year. Nevertheless, the ray-traced reflections were stunning, whether it was seeing the environment reflected accurately in a vehicle's metallic chassis or the driver's seat so perfectly reflected in the side view mirror. The shape of these reflections changes based on the vehicle's curvature, and at one point, the driver is reflected in the rear view mirror while their metal helmet also reflects the surrounding tunnel. Though the approach seems to utilize lower resolution reflections to help maintain performance, as pointed out by Digital Foundry in the initial reveal, the results are still very impressive. Polyphony is aiming for 4K 60 FPS performance, and whether that will include ray tracing remains to be seen, but thus far, it's looking very good. Watch Dogs Legion. While not the best example of ray tracing in an open-world setting, Watch Dogs Legion is still noteworthy. Along with more accurate reflections and reflections inside of reflections, its ray tracing also affected transparent materials like glass. The trade-offs, at least on current-gen consoles, can be seen in the quality of global illumination and shadows, while ray-traced reflections used checkerboarding for reduced resolutions. Certain materials also relied on cube maps instead of ray tracing for reflections. Once again, it's not the best, but Watch Dogs Legion's ray tracing does stand out, and it should be interesting to see how Ubisoft further improves on this implementation in the future. Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. Even with how great some games look right now, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart seems like it's going to take things to the next level. We've seen how the title handles ray-traced reflections, especially on metallic objects like Clank, but it goes even deeper. Characters' eyes are ray-traced as well, as seen with Ratchet's hand being reflected in his eye, which was confirmed to be real by Insomniac's head of technology Sean McCabe on Twitter. Speaking to The Verge, tech director Mike Fitzgerald also discussed a scene where various metallic objects, each being differently curved, realistically reflected characters' positions. With so much attention to detail, it's no wonder that Rift Apart is one of the more gorgeous-looking games even before release.
Please remember to thank our marvelous Emperor before, during, and after making your purchase.
Next, Forza Motorsport. As good as Gran Turismo 7 has looked, there's no denying that the next Forza Motorsport will provide some competition in the ray tracing department. Thus far, Turn 10 Studios has only showcased footage captured in-engine, but the use of ray-traced reflections, from floors reflecting character models and vehicles to cars reflecting the surrounding environment, is very apparent. According to creative director Chris Isaki in July 2020's Forza Monthly, ray tracing also helped expose, quote, some of the issues that we had in how we were either building the content or rendering the content. As a result, there will be a, quote, whole host of other technology around how we're improving the car's models, how we're improving the track's visuals, environmental visuals, and character visuals, just to make everything beautiful and really pop in the scene. Again, we may have to wait some time for extensive gameplay footage, but the teases thus far looks very promising. Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. Considering the franchise's legacy, extreme graphical fidelity isn't what you'd expect from a Five Nights at Freddy's title. However, thanks to a bigger budget and Steel Wool Games being part of development, the horror title is looking quite impressive. The 80s-style mall setting is the perfect backdrop for its ray-traced reflections, which is further aided by the global illumination and shadows with ambient occlusion. While we still need to see more gameplay, the current presentation coupled with the larger scale promises a snazzier, if not more terrifying, atmosphere while exploring. And that brings us to the end of the video. A quick request before we conclude. We upload new videos every single day, and if you like what we're doing, please consider subscribing. It really helps us out. Also, don't forget to enable all notifications by clicking the bell icon so that you can receive daily video updates. Thanks for watching.